Morning. I'd like to call to order the November 19th, 2019 public hearing for the City of Tampa's Barrio Latino Commission. Welcome, everyone. I'm John Thompson, Chair of the Commission. If you're here to present a project, you will have limited time to make your presentation, so we suggest being thorough but concise. When coming to the microphone, you will need to identify yourself and your relationship to the project. The Commissioners will not ask any questions during your presentation. Your project should be presented in the following order: site plan, elevations, architectural details, and wall sections. Staff presents staff report. We will then ask for public comment. Following your presentation, the Commissioners will be asking questions in the same order as the presentation. Please state and spell your name clearly. If you are here to speak for or against a project, your time will be limited to 3 minutes, so take some time now to summarize your comments because 3 minutes goes by very quickly. Following public comment, the applicant will have 5 minutes for rebuttal. The public hearing will then be closed. The only comments which will be allowed after the public hearing is closed will be in response to any questions from the Commissioners. The Commissioners will then discuss the case and will make their decision based on the City Ordinance, Chapter 27 of the City Zoning Code, the design guidelines, the Secretary of Interior Standards, design review comments, and the testimony given at this public hearing. The BLC can only act on items that are within our specific jurisdictional responsibility. Owner agents are independently responsible to obtain any appropriate permits and/or approvals. If you haven't already done so, please silence your cell phones. I'd like to introduce Commissioners to my left, please.
Good morning, I'm Lee Win.
Good morning, I'm Eric Schiller.
Jose Chalotz.
Alex Andriakos.
And we also have with us today staff Dennis Fernandez, Ron Vila, Beverly Jusak, and legal Kate Wells. We have the minutes from October 22nd, 2019. We need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Need a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting minutes pass. Announcements.
Good morning, Commissioners. Dennis Fernandez, Architecture Review and Historic Preservation Manager. Just wanted to submit the BLC staff approvals into the record for the preceding month. And did want to welcome our newest commissioner, Commissioner Andrakis. He and another commissioner, Liz Welch, who wasn't able to attend, are our newest members to the Barrio, and we appreciate your willingness to serve, and we look forward to working with you in the future. I have one continuation, and I'll ask Ron to come up and take care of that.
Good morning, Commissioners. Ron Vila, I'm staff with Historic Preservation. Under continuations, we have one noted is BLC 19-146 for the address of 1402 North 19th Street and 1806 East 3rd Avenue. That continuation came by a request by the agent to the December 17, 2019 public hearing at 9 a.m. And if we could receive a motion, please.
Move to continue BLC 19-146 for the property located at 1402 North 19th Street and 1806 East 3rd Avenue to the next scheduled meeting on December 17, 2019.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Continued.
Thank you. Under conflicts of interest and ex parte communication, if any commissioner feels uncomfortable and they wish to put something on the record, they may do so now.
Actually, just for clarification, in the event that you've received any contact, whether verbal, by applicants or members of the community on items that are on today's agenda, or any written communications, those would need to be disclosed on the record. And I'm not seeing any responses, so I think we're good to go.
Thank you, Kate. At this time, we're ready for the swear-in. Everybody that wishes to testify, including staff, please stand up and raise your right hand.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you provide this morning is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do. The first case is BLC 19-169. It's for the address of 916 East 12th Avenue. That's the current home site. Reflected on the report is that this request is coming in for a relocation. So the home site is 916 East 12th, and it's going to be relocated to 911 East 12th Avenue. just right across the street, and I'll show you that in the documents that I have. Along with a request for relocation, there is a variance attached to it, and their request is a parking reduction from 2 spaces to 1. Here I wanted to start with the Sanborn map. In red is where the structure currently sits. And then you follow the arrow is going to move to this receiving site. It is an empty parcel currently right now. You see the fabric back in 1929. And then above here is where the interstate currently is. And you see the bisection of that with this aerial here. So this is more of a curtain situation. Red indicates the home site, green is where the structure is going to go, and then you see the intrusion of the interstate in the past and how it's kind of bisected the fabric that we have to the north and then the fabric to the south. This is a current overhead shot following that same pattern where the structure sits today. It's coming across the street. The receiving site has 2 alleys. It has an alley that runs to the north and south, just to the west of the subject site, and then there's an alley that runs east to west behind the subject site. Both of those alleys are open but unimproved. This is looking back at the structure. This is the front elevation. What's important here is to look at the setback. We're using the sidewalk as the property line. I don't know exactly where the setback is, but just for reference point, back of the sidewalk to the piers, approximately 10 foot, and then elevation from grade as well. So it's very important if a structure is requested for demolition that it takes on those same characteristics. This is looking down the side. It's a very large home for an early period house. This is the east elevation. As you look closer, part of the relocation, a foundation plan is required, and the piers are brick cladded, so that will be part of the request this morning. And just to the east of the structure, this is the continuation of the empty land there. A lot of the homes have already been relocated on the north side of 12th Avenue. This is looking back at the west side of the property that's going to be relocated. And just to the west of the facade is just more land. As we go around to the rear, some old additions and prior relocations don't make the move, and this 8-foot section will be left behind. This, once again, is to illustrate the setback and what should be respected at the receiving site. A little closer shot at the entry steps. Piers and columns that flank the front steps. And the dormer with the stamped roof. Just so you get your bearings again, we're here. Now I'm going to move to the receiving site and show you some pictures at the receiving site. 12th Avenue is here. There's an alley here and an alley here. This is looking from 12th Avenue back into the empty parcel. Alley to the west, alley to the south. The alley to the west, which runs north and south. This is coming off of 12th Street, heading south. Condition of the alley. And once we get to the termination point where the alley's T, I'm going to look to the east. And it's just all overgrown. There's some fences back there. Here's another shot. You see kind of a fence and a structure in the background. I wanted to end with 12th Avenue is a very wide street. It's a dead-end street. There is parking on both sides currently. This is looking back into the neighborhood. This is looking to the east, and this is looking from the subject site to the west. This is Nebraska. German American Club is just right over here. And then to conclude, and speaking with a consultant with FDOT, and she's probably going to speak later when it's the public forum. You see the larger, more comprehensive plan of what FDOT has purchased abutting the interstate. Blue, I believe, is under their ownership. The pink is future sites that they will acquire, and we're here. So this is kind of like in the ultimate expansion plan. They've already accumulated many parcels, and this kind of tells the story in a nutshell. So at this time, I'm going to have the agent come forward and address the board. Oh, lastly, attached to your staff report, I do have his variance information. So as he goes through his variance information, you can follow along.
Thank you.
Morning.
Morning.
I'm Jerry Alonso. I'm the owner of the project, and Ron explained to you, he showed where the house sits and how the DOT has taken everything on that side. I'm looking to move it across the street. It is a contributing structure. The hardship, the first question on the particular difficulties, I am going to remove 8 feet off the back of the building. That was an old storage that was there, that was put on, not back in the day. This was added on before I bought the building. We're going to remove that so it fits on the lot better. And it was a quadplex. I had gotten granted a quadplex for that, where it sits now. All new meter banks, everything was provided, everything was redone, plumbing, everything. And then the DOT came in, wanted the property, and they acquired the property. It sat there for quite a few years. So I'm looking to move it. I acquired the lot across the street. There was an old house there that burnt, and we're going to move it across the street. Like I said, it was a quadplex. Now I'm going down to a duplex. But as a duplex with the new parking restrictions, I have to provide parking. So what I'm asking for is a variance for 1 parking space. I am going to provide 1 driveway, if you see on the site plan. On the west side of the property, it's going to be 1 driveway. And that'll provide for 1 apartment. And what I'm asking for is parking for the other apartment. Now 12th Avenue, as we've seen on there, is very wide. People do park there in the street. We don't have the clutter that we have like on 11th. It's very narrow street, and people park in the street. That's all they have to park. This side is very wide. I don't see it really being a problem. The home it's a contributing structure, and there's an alley that surrounds it. It is an open alley. There's been issues about trying to close it. That just didn't work. No transportation. I've gotten with everyone about what to do there. And what we came up with was, ask for a variance. I'm going down, like I said, just 2 apartments, just a duplex. I am going to provide that driveway on the one side. And as far as the neighborhood, the house is going to be moved. If you see the setbacks on all the houses that I took photos of, and on the setbacks of those, I'm not sure if they're on on where you all can see it. I had downloaded it. But they're all 6 foot, 8 foot. But I guess my point is that they're all historical houses. The house fits perfect there. You keep the fiber of the neighborhood right there on that side, and they shouldn't be moving anything else. We've looked at the interstate projects, and they're going over to the side. Everything pulls it away from that property, and it's something I emphasize with the DOT, like, don't make me move it again, or have me do something else with this, So they put it in writing. I'm all good. I can move it if I'm if I'm awarded to do that. All the trees I've had a tree consultation out there. We've got one camper tree and one palm tree. He's already said there's not a problem with that. On the lot, there's burnt trees all on the left side, and all those are going to be removed, of course, with a permit. And he's already said, I have a form that he wrote for me yesterday at the building department for the trees, and he marked every tree, which is every tree except for an avocado tree in the back that I want to save.
Put that here, put that here.
Okay. I didn't know we had.
180, please.
Yeah, all these trees up here on the one side were burnt and damaged. I've got one that's hanging over the old lady's house next door that would love if I would take it out. It's totally dead. So we're going to remove all that. There's one tree across the street directly in front of the building that is a camper tree that's damaged. I took photos of that, and I had Natural Resources go out and meet me, and he agreed the tree was probably needed to go anyway. It is on the right of way across the street. And there is one palm tree that's close to the building. We want to pull it out and come down 12th Avenue to not mess with anything else, just that one palm, and the house will go by, and the camper, so we can back it into the property. Nothing else is obstructing. There's a couple of trees here on the other side. One belongs to DOT, which I am going to ask them to see if they'll remove it. It's totally dead from the fire. It's on the other side of the alley. And there's one in the back of the alley that's just broken and hanging over. I'll probably have to handle that because all I can do is ask transportation to do it. And I'm not, this is time sensitive. I want to get this house, move it over, and start working on it. I don't want it to sit there and mothballing. We're motivated to make this happen as quick as I can get it on the lot. I've answered Ron's questions on his standards, and I think it meets it. I mean, all his questions are, is there any other place for this house? There's no one else wants to move it. There's no other lots that'll fit. Okay. Oh, yeah, that's it right there. Okay. So the first one is DOT project in the way, so the house can't sit there. And this relocation plan development district alternatives to demolition or relocation, there really aren't any other than moving it to another lot, or if they want to knock it down to where it sits. You have a question?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I appreciate the presentation. What I wanted to do was, I want to streamline this for you.
Okay.
Because we're kind of all over the place. We've got a variance request and we've got a certificate of appropriateness that we need to move the house.
Right.
So let's cover the variance first and get that out of the way, determine what we're going to do with that. And then we can move into the certificate of appropriateness in order for the house to be relocated. So I think that you've explained in part the need for the variance request because of the lot size and going to a duplex. We have on record your hardship, your statement of variance hardship, which is part of our package. Is it appropriate at this point to hear from transportation as to the variance? Can we streamline this?
Certainly. The commission has handled these types of requests differently depending on the situation. We can keep them separate, which I think is the direction that we're going in, or the presentation can be complete and it addresses the variance as well as the request to relocate. But at this point, if you'd like to separate out the two parts of the application, we can certainly do that. And so we could have staff address the variance request and then see if there's anybody from the public on that issue, go into discussion on that,
Right.
and then take up the remainder of the
Well,
application.
I think that the way that the site plan is presented, it's contingent upon the variance request.
It is.
Okay, so let's go ahead and knock that one out. We'll go through the hardship if we need to. I think we understand it. We can listen to transportation. We can make a motion. Then we can proceed into the next portion of it, which is the moving of the house to the particular site with its certificate of appropriateness. So I think that'll make it go quicker.
Okay, well, okay, transportation's gonna,
Yeah.
okay.
I think that would be helpful.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I came to give background on it. It was Transportation's suggestion that they asked for the reduction from 2 spaces to 1. The original discussion was whether it was going to be a single-family home or a duplex. If he does a duplex in this district, he needs to provide 1 parking space per unit, but they are not allowed to tandem park by code, even though the driveway appears to be a tandem driveway. He came in several times, and I ended up pulling in staff from all over the place trying to find another solution. We looked at using the alleys. We looked at trying to find a way to park at least 1 space in the back. There really was no realistic geometry to get a car back there and have it be able to maneuver. We looked at the possibility of vacating that alley because he needs just another 6 feet. If the lot was 6 feet wider, he would be good. But there's another property to the north that appears that occasionally accesses the alley. So the alley is in use. So therefore, he can't just close. He has to close the alley for the entire, not just the T, the entire system. So that didn't seem to work. So at the end of the day, after much discussion, you can have this driveway and you're going to have to ask for a waiver.
Okay, so there's the variance request is to go from 2 to 1. Transportation supports that because of just the nature of what's attempted
There's
to be.
no other.
There's no other way around what.
If he wants to do what he wants to do, then it needs to be reduced from 2 to 1.
Okay. In terms of the variance, I don't see anybody from the public that would like to speak for or against it. So we will close that portion of the public hearing and go to commissioners' questions if we have any.
No questions.
I have no question.
No questions.
Okay, so we have no questions on the variance. We need a motion to do something with the variance, to approve it.
So move that the variance request for case BLC 19-169 located at 916 East 12th Avenue as depicted on the site plan presented at the public hearing for a parking reduction from 2 spaces to 1 be granted for the following conditions, because based upon the petitioner meeting the burden of proof with regard to the 6 hardship criteria set forth in Chapter 27, Section 27-96 D of the City of Tampa Code of Ordinances for granting variances as stated and the evidence provided in this public hearing. Specifically that they worked with the Department of Transportation to figure out all other possible options, and Department of Transportation has concluded that the reduction of parking is the only way to move the building over to the specific site.
Okay, we have a motion.
Seconded.
We have a second. We have a motion and a second with no conditions attached. So if there's conditions, sometimes we ask if you're in favor of those or understand them. But we have a clean motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, variance is passed. Now we can get into the certificate of appropriateness portion of it, which is the moving of the building to that particular site and kind of the way it's going to sit on the site and what you intend to do with it. So you're back up.
Okay, so the building being moved is gonna lose its historical preservation. I've already applied to, when it comes back onto 9/11, I've got the application, should I show it? I've got the application already done to reinstate that historical preservation. I have I'm putting mechanical in the back, any AC units. I've got a drawing of that. The one? Oh, okay. Okay, that's gonna be like right on the back of the property by the avocado trees and the back of the building. That's originally where it was. In the other site, everything's in the back as far as mechanical. Like I stated, all the trees not a problem. I've already pretty much got them approved, other than having to pull permits. Once I do get approved for my permit, I have to get the permits for the tree, also for all the trees. I mean, it sits there, it's on a big lot. To me, it's a big lot. It's bigger than it was. What we had before was, they used to use the alley for parking. Where it sits now, that's an open alley, but it dead ends into the interstate.
Right.
And since 1930, they've been parking on the side there. And now, that's where we came into the question, of the parking, which we've already distinguished. But other than that, the move, it's a simple move, one day. Most of everything's going to be prepared for that. The trees will be removed and all that before I even do that. And like I say, once we get it there, I've got the cladding to put on the outside of the bricks. The stairs are going to stay the same. We're moving the entire porch, which is concrete. We're going to set it down, repair whatever we need to once it sits there. The structure's strong. When I redid it years ago, I mean, it had some floors and joists and stuff like that, but that's that old wood is just so hard. It's petrified. It's not going anywhere. This building, you can stand it up and put it on its side. It's not going anywhere. So I don't see any problem there. And if there is, I am in construction and I can do everything that needs to be done as far as rehabbing it. We're not looking to change anything on the outside. The most I might have to do is redo them steps the way they sit now. I'd like to make them like they are, rounded and everything. I don't think we can move those steps. We're going to try, but I don't, it's been there forever. Main thing is I can get that porch area and the whole house lifted without any damage. Like I said, if there is something, that's not a problem. Is there anything else?
Yes, there is. Look, I appreciate your presentation, and I'm sure that we've got a couple questions for you. Again, I don't see any public for public comment on this particular one, so what I'd like to do is just run through the commissioner's questions. We can answer them, and then we can move forward. Or staff report for this portion? Yeah. Thanks, Ron.
Ron Vila, I'm staff with Historic Preservation. At this time, I'd like to go through the staff report addressing the certificate of appropriateness. That staff find that this application is consistent with the Tampa Code of Ordinances for Section 2799F12. The conditions are as follows. As the structure sits today, Mr. Alonso alluded to, it is a contributing structure. So once the structure is picked up, it loses its status. He has been in contact with our office. He has the paperwork. But protocol is that we move the house, and once the house is sat down on the new foundation, then the paperwork starts to re-engage the building as a contributing structure, and that will go to the Historic Preservation Commission for that reclassification, if you will. As part of the relocation, we look at the foundation plan that was provided. And then part of the foundation plan, we look at the cladding as well here. And the elevation from grade that's consistent with the existing condition. So he's provided a brick veneer on the exterior to match the condition that's in the field today. If you look at the receiving site, he's putting the drive aisle down the east side. He had to move the structure over a little bit. While moving the structure over poses some challenges to permitting. The structure has to have so much clearance from the property line for fire separation. So in working with Mr. Alonso and other city staff to try to position this structure in a different format to get that other parking was just not achievable, we felt. So this is the solution, and the variance was already discussed, so we appreciate that as it moves forward. So the conditions that I have, that the structure, and this should be a condition in your motion as well, that the structure regains its classification. Elevation from grade and setback should be consistent with the pattern at the home site currently. He does have additional photos with dimensions of houses along the block and shows the setback as well. YC2, which is the zoning classification for this parcel, the front yard setback is 10. So he's just meeting that. Within the block face on the south side of 12th Avenue, there's a little undulation there, but 10 foot seems to be a good spot to be inconsistent with that block face. We had discussed in the office rehabilitation versus mothballing. Is he going to move the house and let it sit there while he regroups? Last discussion we had is that he wants to move on the house immediately. So there's some work that we could assist him with administratively if he's going to take some boards off and put some boards on, or the windows wherever it needs to go. That could be an administrative function. If it goes beyond the scope of what we could do administratively, you will see the project again. He did indicate the mechanicals towards the rear. They have to meet city code. And then the alley question here. Initially, when we looked at the survey, both alleys were closed, and after further research, the alleys are open but unimproved. So that was going to try to factor into how this whole site was going to work. And then you saw the plan that was presented today. And then lastly, he had additional questions that he had to answer. And that relates back to 2799. He had addressed the board, and if there's additional questions with that section, he should address that with you guys.
Thank
Yes,
you.
sir.
Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Ron.
Okay.
Again, we'll open it up for public comment, but I don't see any, so we will, the commissioners will ask questions based upon this portion of the presentation, if you have any.
Before we get into that, I do have Elaine Lee. She's a consultant with FDOT, and she wishes to address the board.
Good morning.
Morning.
Most of you guys are new. I used down here all the time in the past, over the last, I don't know, maybe 2 decades, maybe. The department under their, they have an agreement that's related to the interstate, and we relocated 64 historic structures. 55 of them were in the Ybor area. That agreement required us to move them to City of Tampa property. This property, this house was not identified as one that we were going to relocate. Obviously, we didn't relocate it. One of the reasons was because it was so large and there were so limited, and the city didn't have anything in the area that we could relocate it to. So we are extremely happy that Jerry is interested in saving the structure. As part of the process that we went through back in the 90s before we initiated all of this, it was actually the BLC that asked us, the department, to consider every time that we didn't relocate a historic property that we make it available to the public. And so that is what we have been doing ever since probably about 2001. We've started making them available to the public. So we are very happy that Jerry is interested in saving another structure. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you very much. Okay.
So I just had, because all the exteriors to remain the same as the original, there's some previous actions about removing some stucco and replacing some windows. What was the history of that, and what was the stucco that was removed, and is any of that going to be restored as such?
You want to answer that?
So Levi, I believe you're alluding to page 3 on the staff report, the replacement of windows and doors. They were wood windows in the original opening. So at that time, we tried to work with the owners that had it at that time to rehabilitate the structure on site. As we peel back this onion, they have boarding over the windows, and we'll evaluate that. As the renovation rehabilitation comes forward, the owners could wish to go back to more of a period product with the windows, any replacement of siding would have to be wood siding. The windows, any replacement have to be wood windows because this will become a contributing structure. But they can move forward, relocate the house, and if they would just wish to leave it in the state that it's in, they can. So, renovation, rehabilitation, we'll go to the Secretary of Interior Standards, and we'll address, their concerns at that time.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. I have no further questions.
No questions, thank you.
Ron, have we seen the rear elevation that's proposed?
I have one picture that shows the section that's going to be removed. Let me refresh your memory. So there were some challenges just moving the structure because of size and then fitting onto the parcel. If this is left behind and this was a lean-to, probably not part of the original house, then it fits on the site without any additional variances request. So we'll have to work with the owner to see how that rear end is going to look then.
Would that come back to the board, or is that going to be staff approval?
A lot of times, we find that the fenestration is there, that the windows are there and the door is there. If the scarring or ghosting is there, I think that's something we can handle administratively.
Okay, and then the other question for you is, the site plan that's being shown to us shows a concrete drive. Would ribbon drives be more appropriate in this part of the district?
I had doctored a site plan for him, and what I'm looking for is ribbons are very difficult to come in a tight throat. So a lot of times, if you score it properly, and that's on my staff report as well, you put a central line down the middle, and then every 5 foot you put a horizontal joint to break up that monolithic pour would be period appropriate. You see that from time to time in certain situations, and that scoring is the same way for the sidewalk here. And these are usually in 3x3 modules.
Okay, and then the site plan that's being presented doesn't show the steps. Is that because it's still undetermined if the steps are going to be recreated?
That's correct. But we're looking to recreate that same radius step system.
Okay, thank you.
No questions.
In terms of the stairs and the steps, I think that will be important to retain and to either recreate or document so that we can have that as the house moves from one side to the other. And I applaud you for your efforts in trying to keep this piece here as the interstate comes through and we get a little bit more or a little bit less fabric. It's nice to retain what we have, so kudos. On the brick piers, is that a thin brick that's going to go on the front of it?
It is, it's clad. Ron had a sample in his office. I tried to purchase one just to show. We have a photo of it. It's just clad brick that's gonna go thin.
Okay, so thin brick, and it goes on the perimeters.
Perimeter only.
Perimeter only. When you go on the perimeter, do you wrap all 4 sides?
All the way around.
Okay, all 4 sides. Okay, because
All 4 sides.
of the perimeter block.
All the perimeter, we have a, matter of fact, there's shows it here on this one for the foundation. And Ron asked me to put the size there, it's 1.9. And that's what it's gonna be on site. Whatever it is there,
Yeah.
it's gonna be the same.
That's the elevation off the top of the footing. I don't necessarily see in the drawing the indication for the brick. I guess it's brick cladding or something that's
It
pointing.
states it
It
on
states
there.
it. Yeah, I don't see the line.
It's not on this page.
Okay,
I have 3 pages.
but for staff and for the record, the perimeter piers have the brick clad
All the way around.
all the way around. Okay, that was the question.
All the way around the building or all the way around each pier?
Each
All the
pier.
way around the exterior piers of the building. Obviously, the ones that are underneath will never be seen. We're not shooting for those, but everything that's on the outside will be
And
platted.
3 sides of each pier?
No, on all sides of each pier.
Okay. 4
Yeah.
And it's gonna be, I've gotta cover it with lattice on the side, the proper
Okay.
Yeah.
lattice, which I have on it now
Right.
from the first time.
And can you move the detail a little bit? What I want to do is confirm that so that we can see the cladding, I'm
Um,
sorry, further down.
On another one.
What we want, my question is, I want to confirm that the brick will be set back in from the face of the wood, so we don't have brick projecting out beyond the wood structure.
Right, no, all four corners, and it's gonna be flush with the siding, because it's only half inch. It'll be flush with the siding, and that's gonna be exposed. Everything in between is gonna be covered up with wood lattice, the appropriate, style.
Right. Okay,
Which what I have on it now was approved the first time, so I'm probably gonna redo it all,
right.
because it's been sitting there so long.
Okay. So we talked about the stairs, we talked about the brick, we've talked about the porch, and other commissioners have addressed the back elevation, which will likely be able to be talked about with staff if we need to. Okay. Those are my questions. So I think we're at the point where we can make a motion with some conditions, perhaps.
So we can move to grant a certificate of appropriateness for the drawings and documents presented at this public hearing in BLC 19-169 for the property located at 916 East 12th Avenue with the following conditions. Because based upon the finding of fact, the proposed project is consistent with the Ybor City guidelines of the City of Tampa, and it follows, what was it? The City of Tampa Code of Ordinances, sections 27-99 F1 through 2. But with the following conditions: that the applicant worked with staff to apply the brick to the perimeter piers on all four faces, work with staff for the rear elevation of the building after the removal of the shed, and then work with staff on the rehabilitation of the building in general for any windows, doors, anything else that will be replaced, siding, etc. as well. We wanted to add.
Can I answer that on the windows? They're all new.
Okay.
They've all been redone. We went, after Andrew, we had to go, okay.
I appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd like to second and then also add that the applicant apply for reapplication for the, excuse me, that the applicant reapply for the required reclassification for the historic structure once it's on its new receiving site, and that the applicant work directly with staff to recreate the unique stairs that are there, and if not, work with staff to come up with a viable solution.
Okay. We have a motion with conditions, a second with additional conditions.
And just a question, clarification, during the discussion, there was also commentary with regard to the scoring pattern for the driveway and the walkway, and I didn't know if you wanted to include that in your motion.
Sure.
Yes. And that the applicant work with staff for the scoring pattern for the driveway and the walkway up to the building as well.
Okay, so we have a motion with conditions that's been seconded. Do you understand the conditions that have been?
Yes.
Okay, and do you agree with them?
Yes.
Okay, very good. That makes it easy. So, motion, seconds with conditions, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? You're good.
Thank you.
All right.
Motion passes. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And seeing no further business, we will adjourn.
Thank you. So the condition, you'll get something in the mail, the name and the date. The plan, you gotta show them all.
Keep eating the newspaper, right?
Give you a lot more for the back.